Catter is here in the studio with me, my first guest on the program. Bob Catter, thanks for your time. Andrew Wilkie wants a parliamentary inquiry, not happy that the current one would look more about law enforcement and whether they've been all above board. What do you make of all of this?
I deeply regret that in Australia we have to bring the tall poppies down all the time. And I love bringing down tall poppies, but some of those tall poppies, like the Packer family, made a very great contribution to Australia. I mean, the Labor movement, I don't think would ever have existed without Clive Packer and his very close friendship with Red Ted Theodore.
They're still going to obey all the laws, don't they?
Well, Kerry Packer used to send a ship at his own expense. No one even knows about this. Twice a year with doctors and dentists and everyone up into Asia to look after people. No one ever knew about it, which is really extraordinary. And Jamie, I haven't spoken to Jamie in 10 or 15 years, but I used to reckon Jamie was a pretty good bloke. But he's been out of the show for a while now. But look, the CEOs now are running Australia. They run the government, they run everything. They are interfering in all sorts of questions, like moral questions and economic questions. They're running the country. This has got to stop. And also, I think a lot of them are very naughty.
Can I just bring you back to this, though? From what you've heard of this so far, do you need a parliamentary inquiry to focus more on what ministers might have lobbied for on behalf of Crown?
Look, I get very unhappy when I see politicians buying into these issues. I've always backed...
Well, they have to, don't they?
Well, I've always backed Wilkie and Xenophon in the gambling issues very strongly, you know, but I just think we're going a little bit far here. I think that Porter's right in recommending the matter so that action has to be taken in the sense that it now has to be looked at.
All right.
And we don't get involved as politicians and we let the people, you know, separation of powers and all that
comes from the inquiry. At Newstart, can I ask, what do you make of the case to increase that's being pushed again this week?
Yeah, I'm a great supporter of Tim Costello's. I've always been, the banking inquiry, we want an authority set up, not APRA, ASIC, we want abolished, we want authority set up, but we always pumped strongly that Tim should have been chairman of that.
But increasing Newstart, Bob.
Well, he's advocating it, right? But St Thomas More, one of the great Christians, his moral position rings down to us through millennia. But he wrote Utopia, but there's a new book out. I just anticipate the question, Utopia for Realists, and it advocates that everyone should get a livable income. Well, my little granddaughter gave this to me, and she lives in an area of like about 20 feet by 20 feet. That's all the space. And this is the richest nation on earth. That's all we can do for these people. And she's got 3 jobs. It's not as if she's not drawing out there. So I think that I'm very strongly backing Tim Costello on it, very, very strongly indeed. And you say, where do you get the money from? If you introduce financial transactions tax, we tax the sale of shares. The CEO's power is starting to be curtailed. We tax the sale of shares. And that should have been done long ago. Tax it how?
You already get taxed in terms of capital gains on shares.
Very different than a financial transactions tax. I mean, you buy groceries, all right, food is not included, but most of your groceries are not food. And it is taxed
at a rate of 10%. As in the GST on financial products, is that what you're talking?
It's 10%. Well, I mean, my old aunties, they like going down and having a flutter when they were alive on the poker machines. That was their form of gambling. My rich relatives in Sydney gamble on the stock market. My poor old aunties
are a bit of a difference there in your return over years.
Well,
what did you make of Barnaby Joyce coming in and he's advocating for Newstart increase?
Well, I thought he's going to walk into a haymaker. And in football, I was walking right into a big stiff arm. And, of course, he copped it. You know, no one's ever going to feel sorry for parliamentarians on, you know, the $200,000 a year or whatever the hell we're on. I thought he was always going to cop a haymaker there, and he copped it.
Did it help make the case?
I think... I mean, I've always been an admirer of Barnaby's, and he's a friend. And I strongly advised him not to resign. But in this case, I think he's been very ill-advised buying into it, and he came off looking bad.
Hong Kong is in the headlines, Australia making urgings about the rights of Hong Kongers. What have you made of the approach from the government from a pretty difficult situation?
I am deeply embarrassed. As an Australian, I am deeply embarrassed. I mean, it's so humiliating for us to be telling China what to do. And the great American president, one of the greatest American presidents, Theodore Roosevelt, he said, "I speak softly, but I carry a big stick." Our leadership has got a very loud mouth and no stick at all. I mean, there'd be 50 or 100 cities in China. 50 to 100 cities in China bigger than Australia. You know, I just think the arrogance of us. And also, you know, I mean, there's a little bit of, we're Europeans and they're Asians, and we're starting to tell them from our moral heights. I don't think it's a good idea.
I think there's only a couple of cities in China
I think
in Australia, but it's a big country.
Yeah, but Tom, there's an arrogance in there. There's an arrogance.
But an arrogance in saying that human rights and rights.
Yes, no, I absolutely believe when we start preaching holier than thou, and we better start looking in our own backyard, and I can give you 1,000 examples where this country is run by CEOs. I mean, where in the world are CEOs getting $20 million a year in salaries? When they turn up, the head of Qantas gets 25 million, according to the newspapers and media.
Not sure about that one. Look, we don't have time for 1,000 examples. We'll check that salary. It doesn't sound right to me, but I'm happy to be on it.
If it's 12 million, I'll be quite happy on 12 million.
Can I ask you finally, Bob Katter, you've been speaking about broken promises already from the government. It's a bit early, isn't it?
No, look, the minister was only made aware of the situation today. But, you know, when a minister goes in an election campaign and makes cold-blooded promises to try and get votes, then straight after the election, they don't know anything about it. Oh, we don't know anything about it.
Well, what are you talking about specifically?
Well, it's a very big issue in North Queensland.
What issue is that?
Townsville and Cairns, there is no safe harbour. You get into trouble in the ocean, you die, because there's nowhere to go. Unless you beach your boat, and no one ever beaches a boat. So we need safe harbour. This is about safe harbour halfway between Townsville and Cairns, where there's thousands of boats every week, and a lot of those boats get into trouble. So big issue. We had a promise. Up to date, they're acting like the promise doesn't exist. Well, it does exist.
We might delve into safe harbour next time, Bob Katter, and we'll speak next parliamentary sitting week. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tom. God bless all the listeners.